The theater lights inside the hall were soft and low, like the quiet moment just before dawn. The audience settled into their seats, with slow movements, coats brushing fabric, small coughs fading into silence. On the stage, a single microphone waited under a pale white beam. It stood there calmly, as if it had all the time in the world. Behind the judge's desk, Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed loosely, his face neutral and alert. He had seen thousands of performances, heard countless stories, and learned to protect his heart by staying still. Tonight felt like any other night, yet something in the air moved slowly, carefully, as if asking to be noticed. Backstage, a young man stood alone, his hands rested at his sides, fingers slightly tense. He listened to the muffled sound of the crowd through the thick curtain. Each breath felt heavier than the last, not because of fear alone, but because of memory. He had grown up with a song that lived quietly in his home, floating through old radios and late-night conversations. The song was called Anik. It carried the weight of regret, love, and longing. For most people, it was just a famous song. For him, it was a mirror. Tonight, he was not only here to sing, he was here to speak without speaking. The announcer's voice echoed gently through the hall, introducing him with simple words. No big promises, no dramatic build-up, just a name, a song choice, and a pause. When he walked onto the stage, the lights followed him slowly. He bowed his head slightly, out of respect, out of habit. The audience clapped politely, unaware of the quiet storm standing before them. Simon Cowell looked up, studying him with the same careful distance he always kept. He asked a short question, his tone calm, almost casual. The young man answered softly. His voice was steady, but something deeper moved beneath it, like a river under ice. The problem that brought him here had started long ago. He had grown up without a father's hand on his shoulder, without a voice guiding him through mistakes. His mother had done her best, working long hours, telling stories to fill empty spaces. Sometimes late at night, she played old songs on a small speaker. Anik always made her quiet. She never explained why. As a child, he learned not to ask too many questions. Silence became normal. Love was present but incomplete. He learned to sing because singing filled the gaps words could not reach. As he grew older, the truth came slowly like light through a cracked door. A letter, a name, Freddie Aguilar, a legend. The man whose voice had carried in across generations was his father. The knowledge did not bring instant joy. It brought confusion, anger, and a deep sense of being unfinished. How could a song about a parent's regret belong to the very man who was absent? The irony sat heavy in his chest for years. He sang the song alone, quietly, trying to understand both sides of its meaning. On the stage, the music began with a gentle strum. The first notes floated into the room like a memory returning home. The young man closed his eyes for a brief second, not to high, but to gather himself. When he opened them, he looked forward, not at the judges, not at the crowd, but somewhere beyond, as if the past itself was listening. He sang the first line carefully, letting each word rest before moving on. His voice was not loud, it did not rush, it carried patience. The audience leaned in without realizing it. Conversation stopped, phones lowered. Even Simon Cowell shifted slightly in his chair. The song moved through the room like a slow tide. Each lyric felt personal yet universal. Regret, distance, love delayed. The young man did not perform with dramatic gestures. He stood still, allowing the song to breathe. His voice cracked once, just enough to reveal the truth beneath the melody. It was not a mistake, it was a doorway. As the song continued, something changed. The gentle twist revealed itself not through words, but through feeling. The audience began to understand that this was not a cover, this was a conversation across time. Simon Cowell's expression tightened, not in judgment, but in recognition. His hands uncrossed, he leaned forward, eyes fixed on the singer. He had heard it before, but never like this. Never sung by someone living inside its meaning. The young man reached the part of the song that spoke of a child growing distant, of parents waiting, hoping. His voice softened even more. It felt like he was singing to one person somewhere far away. The room held its breath. The light seemed warmer now, less harsh. The music slowed, giving space to every emotion carried within the notes. Tears formed in the eyes of people who did not expect to cry. They were not crying for him alone, but for their own unfinished conversations. Simon Cowell did not move. For a moment he truly froze. His face, usually guarded, opened slightly as if caught between thought and feeling. He did not blink. He did not write notes. He simply listened. In that stillness, the power of the performance settled deep. This was not about skill alone. This was about truth arriving without force. When the final note faded, it did not disappear quickly. It lingered, echoing softly in the quiet hall. The young man lowered his head. He did not smile. He did not bow deeply. He stood there breathing, allowing the moment to end on its own terms. The silence lasted longer than usual. Then, slowly, the audience rose to its feet. Applause came not as an explosion, but as a wave, steady and strong. Simon Cowell stood as well, almost surprised by his own movement. He looked at the young man with something rare in his eyes. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than usual. He did not critique, he did not analyze technique. He spoke about honesty, about how some performances do not need explanation. He admitted that he felt something he could not easily name. The young man listened, his heart full but calm. In the end, there was no dramatic reveal on stage, no confrontation, no sudden reunion. The satisfaction came from something simpler. The song had been sung, the truth had been shared. Somewhere, perhaps, Freddie Aguilar would hear this version of Anik and understand that the song had traveled full circle. The young man left the stage knowing that he had honored both the child he was and the man he was becoming. As the lights dimmed and the crowd slowly made its way out, the air felt lighter. Some people wiped their eyes, others walked in thoughtful silence. Simon Cowell remained seated for a moment longer, staring at the empty stage. He knew that nights like this were rare performances that did not ask for attention, but earned it quietly. The microphone stood alone again, patient as ever, waiting for the next story.